Donald Trump has been hit with bombshell after bombshell in his Jeffrey Epstein scandal. But worst of all is that they appear to be coming from those closest to him. Leaks inside the White House, friends of Trump, and now one of his top aides is releasing tapes that are devastating to Donald Trump's scandal. We're going to get into it all and why Trump just had a screaming, explicit meltdown in the Oval Office. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we can get into these new tapes and what Epstein had to say about Trump that has never been heard before, I want to start with an important piece of context a lie MAGA is always telling about Trump and Epstein's relationship.
Here.
Yeah, I mean, my reaction to reading this was 2003, before anything had happened, we know Donald Trump knew the guy. We also know he disowned him and kicked him out of his club. I was waiting all day long for this rumoring of a bombshell. This looks like kind of a dud to me. And look, the president says it's not, I don't know. But either way, this gives me like Kavanaugh yearbook vibes. My impression is Republicans are going to strongly rally around the president on this thing. I mean, he may have been facing some turbulence over the Epstein situation, but this is the sort of stuff that brings people to circle the wagons around him.
Just to be clear, Trump doesn't agree with you because he's clearly very pissed off about this, perhaps very freaked out about it.
I think
because it's embarrassing.
I think this goes deep.
This is the lie that is so pertinent in the defense of Donald Trump, that he was the one who turned his back on Jeffrey Epstein. Now, we have heard a couple of different accounts of why. Some people say it's because Trump, the guy who claimed Epstein liked him young, finally discovered that that was a weird thing, or, because something creepy happened, even though every report is that Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein did creepy stuff together. Another report is that, Trump and Epstein had a fallout after a business deal where Trump was mad at Epstein for how he behaved. But ultimately, the defense from MAGA is always that Trump didn't like Epstein, that he broke up the relationship, that he ended it all. And I'm sure he wished he did a lot earlier, considering the meltdown he just had in the Oval Office. We're going to check that out and then get to why it's happening, some new Epstein tapes. Trump rages about being effed by Epstein funny business. Donald Trump is privately worrying about his building political crisis over his ties to Jeffrey Epstein, complaining, "They're going to F me." While the president insists he had nothing to do with the late pedophile's crimes, Trump was overheard in the Oval Office saying, "They're going to accuse me of some funny business," Politico's Playbook reported, citing an unnamed Republican close to the White House who heard the remarks. Trump still maintained he had nothing to do with Epstein's offending, but declared, "They're going to F me anyways," Playbook added. The Epstein saga has haunted Trump for weeks after the Department of Justice and FBI said that they won't be releasing any more files related to Epstein and denied the existence of a so-called client list. This is despite Attorney General Pam Bondi telling Fox in February that Epstein's list was sitting right on my desk right now to review. The handling of the Epstein files has sparked outrage among the president's MAGA base, with many of Trump's supporters having eagerly awaited their disclosure for years. It has already been disclosed that Trump's name appears in Epstein's little black book of contacts and on flight logs, confirming Trump traveled on Epstein's private plane multiple times, despite Trump's attempts to quell the uproar around his ties to Epstein and his administration's handling of Epstein files. New bombshells continue to drop. Yes, new bombshells continue to drop. In the latest bombshell in this scandal might be the most damaging to Donald Trump yet, because while he claims he was never even friends with Jeffrey Epstein, and that is in fact a defamatory statement to make because it's so outrageous, we know the counter is true. Trump and Epstein were best buddies, but Trump has been able to hold on like a buoy to this claim that he broke off the relationship. But new tapes coming from none other than Steve Bannon. Yes, Steve Bannon are blowing that all up, and I want to get into it. Jeffrey Epstein said he stopped hanging out with Trump when he realized Trump was a crook, according to his brother. Jeffrey Epstein hinted at his fallout with Donald Trump in an unaired interview, according to his brother. He stopped hanging out with Trump when he realized Trump was a crook, Mark Epstein told Insider. Trump and Epstein were friends for years, and the nature of their fallout remains hazy. Epstein said in an unaired interview that he distanced himself from Donald Trump after realizing he was a crook. crook, according to his brother. Epstein told Insider he viewed a clip of that interview conducted by Trump's former White House advisor, Steve Bannon, after his brother forwarded it to him in the spring of 2019. At the time, Bannon was conducting filmed interviews with the now-dead financier. Bannon sent Jeffrey Epstein a Dropbox link to a clip, which he forwarded to his brother. The link is no longer active, according to Mark. Jeffrey showed me the link to one of these interviews, Epstein said, and in that interview, Jeffrey said he stopped hanging out with Trump when he realized Trump was a crook. Steve Bannon is now the person responsible for putting out new tapes of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein that Mark Epstein, Jeffrey's brother, has made pretty clear the damaging evidence that they contain. And possibly those files could be subpoenaed. Those tapes could be made public because we already know, according to Elon Musk, who seems to have been pretty bang on about a lot of the Epstein stuff, that Steve Bannon as well is in these files. But this blows up the entire MAGA narrative that Donald Trump, realizing what a bad guy Jeffrey Epstein was, decided to break off their relationship. No, Donald Trump was too insidious of a person for Jeffrey Epstein to want to hang out with, is now the claim. Trump was too big of a crook for Epstein. Let that settle. Let that sink in. Insanity. And it's the reason why this administration is scrambling. We saw that today in a meeting between Donald Trump's DOJ and Ghislaine Maxwell, which Senator Sheldon Whitehouse detailed and called out in a very important way right here.
That Donald Trump's name appeared multiple times in the Epstein files, according to senior administration officials. Now, having one's name in the Epstein files is not necessarily an indicator of wrongdoing, but it is worth noting that after Trump was supposedly briefed about the Department of Justice about this, the Department of Justice then wrote that memo saying, we're not releasing anything else. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, a Democrat of Rhode Island, is a senior member of the Judiciary Committee. He's also the former U.S. Attorney for the District of Rhode Island, and he joins me now. Well, I guess the first question is, do you think it's a little weird that he was briefed on this, that according to your colleague Dick Durbin, there was they were working in 24-hour shifts to vet any mention of him, then he's briefed on him, and then they issued the memo saying we're not releasing anything else?
Yeah, I mean, everything about this is weird. First of all, we now know that Trump is in the Epstein files, and we know that not just from the Wall Street Journal reporting, but from the instruction to the FBI agents to identify Trump's name so that they would know that, which would be the basis for the briefing to Trump in May. We also know that this Trump Epstein mess has caused the Speaker of the House to push the flush button and close down the House of Representatives of the United States of America, to send everybody the hell out of Dodge because they've lost control of this issue. We have the Deputy Attorney General, basically the Chief Operating Officer of the Department of Justice, going off to meet with Ghislaine Maxwell, who they've known about for a long time. Suddenly now he needs to meet with her, which is looking like a kind of Tom Hagen, Frankie Pentangelo moment. What is he doing there? That is very weird DOJ procedure. Then over at the Department of National Intelligence, you have the ever reliable Tulsi Gabbard trying to throw the word treason about Obama into the mix as a anti-Epstein change of topic. And then you've got the rather deadly Ron Wyden producing information about $1.5 billion in suspicious activity reports related to Epstein, including payments to women, involvement with Russian banks. And it turns out that apparently the Department of Justice hasn't investigated any of this under Bondi and Trump. So wherever you look around Washington right now, the Trump Epstein mess is a full blazing dumpster fire.
That point you made about Ron Wyden, just to if folks, I want to give people the background here. He wrote a letter to Pam Bondi and said the Treasury Department's Epstein file contains actionable information on more than $1 billion worth of transactions that flowed in and out of Epstein's accounting, including more than 5,725 wire transfers, all of which merit further investigation. My understanding is that he's found because there are these required flags on certain transactions doesn't mean they're illicit, but they've reached some level of sort of like, we're not sure what's going on here, and that there were a ton of those related to Epstein, according to Ron Wyden's letter, that have not been looked at.
They pop up, these SARs, special suspicious activity reports, they pop up more or less automatically when certain guardrails are trespassed by the transaction. But the reason they pop up is so that investigators can then go have a look for money laundering and other illicit activity. So when something pops up through a system that is designed to produce an investigation, and then you don't get the investigation, that's a sign that either somebody was sound asleep at the wheel or somebody was trying to bury more Epstein information.
I want to ask you something, and I discussed the other day with Eric Holder, and we were just talking about Harry Littman, about like they have totally dismantled, I think from day one, right, what had been both a norm and a set of procedures post-Watergate about the Department of Justice's independence from the president, that it's not just an appendage of the White House, that the department is there and has to follow the facts and the law and doesn't just go after the people the president wants to do and protect the people they don't. And that in undoing that, it's now impossible for them to hide behind the Department of Justice or pretend like DOJ is not doing their bidding.
Yeah, I mean, it was always something of a political benefit to a president if the Department of Justice was making decisions that were unpopular publicly or potentially created conflict of interest issues with the president, to be able to say, hey, not our issue. We're hands off. This is the Department of Justice. They're independent. They're separate. And because Trump has completely destroyed that barrier, he now owns every single piece of this mess over there. And I think we have an attorney general, the MAGA Pam Bondi, who was in way over her head with something like this, and very peculiar behavior being evidenced all over the place. I mean, having served as a U.S. attorney and been involved with the Department of Justice, I think I can say with some real confidence that having a deputy attorney general go in person to do a witness interview, I mean, usually a U.S. attorney won't do a witness interview. They will send an FBI agent to do a witness interview because you want separation between the prosecutor office and the investigator office. So to have the DAG, the deputy attorney general, who is actually supposed to be running the show, managing all the rail cars, not involved in individual cases, doing an FBI agent's job of conducting an interview, that is just wild.
They are doing anything possible to cover Trump's ass right now. Is not going to work. I can tell you that much, because we are going to stay on it. We're going to call out the lies. And if you want to support us doing that on this show, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.